everyone. Welcome to the Mark and Smark Connection podcast. I am your host, the Smark, Jesse Disbrow. With me today, and pretty much every other day, especially seeing as it's been the two of us for a while, is the Mark Matt Cooper. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm peachy keen,
Yeah,
as they say.
I threw you a little curve because I didn't let you just say hello or...
Yeah, no, you made me articulate something beyond hello.
Yes.
I had a movie quote all ready to go. I would say I was frozen today, but you caught me. So
I got you. Nobody would have gotten that movie quote anyway, so it would have been fine.
well, also there was a cold front that came through the entire U.S. But yes,
Oh my
Suburban
god,
Commando.
the cold front.
Oh,
Was it like
yeah.
55 degrees down there?
Oh, give me a fucking break. No, right now it's hold on. Yeah, right now it's 66, but it was like 30 something on Tuesday.
Woo!
So yeah,
yeah.
no.
See, it was 30 something up here too, so we weren't missing much. Actually, you know what I'm going to do after this podcast is I'm going to go down to the corner store, get some provisions, and also some wood for my fireplace. And I'm going to turn the fireplace on.
You know, we don't have fireplaces down here.
I know you.
For some reason.
You have like ice boxes.
I guess if I wanted to warm myself, I would have to turn on some wrestling.
Yes.
And let the Sunday night heat warm me up.
Ooh.
It's not Sunday though.
Yes, but that would be the best reference to make. It's also It hasn't been Sunday night heat for like 20 years, but
oh goddamn,
classic though. I think that's the Sunday show. That's the weekend show that basically everyone remembers is Sunday night heat. Yeah.
Yeah, because nobody remembers Thursday Night Thunder.
No, a lot of people remember Thursday Night Thunder, but like Saturday morning, like Velocity or Superstars used to be on Saturday morning. Live Wire.
Superstars.
These were all shows where they taped. These were all shows where they taped a match or two during the week, and then someone like Todd Pettengill would like recap what happened and then show these matches.
This is why you're the Smark and I'm the Mark.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't know. It may not have been. It was like syndicated, so it may not have even been in your area when you were a smaller child.
Maybe not. It's weird. It's like the reach of wrestling as far as like syndication or even local broadcasts seems to stop at the Mississippi River. So over in the West and in Texas, it's like, duh, what's happening?
Right.
You know?
And it picks itself back up after the Rockies.
That's bullshit. Anyway.
It's just cows and corn in the meantime.
Well, I mean, yeah, but...
You're not wrong, but that doesn't defeat my point.
I'm sputtering. I'm like...
beep.
Oh, goodness. Anywho, what do we got on the show today, Jesse?
Well, we got a couple of things on the show. We're going to do our general spiel, including the marking out segment, which I think is pretty much unanimous across all Marks and Smarks this week. We also have basically the Smarks remarks, which is just kind of picking off the most important things that happened this week. That
the Marks may have missed.
Yeah, that anyone may have missed. And then we will touch a little bit on Full Gear, which was in full swing when I was editing last week's podcast. And then we'll talk a little bit about Survivor Series, but not what's coming up, what's happened in the past. And then close out with our hot take and the finishing maneuver. So
yeah, we're almost like last week tonight with some of this because we were generally published on like Saturday or Sunday. So
yes.
Bringing you the hottest news from last Sunday. Yeah. This Sunday.
Yeah,
right.
Good times. Anyway, go ahead and mark out a little bit.
All right, so we're going to start with the segment called Marking Out. This is where I, the Mark, choose one thing that happened during the week that made me mark out in my marky little heart. Typically, I don't watch wrestling. I just figure out what happened via social media. This week, I'm marking out over the fact that CM Punk, he came out on WWE Backstage on the Fox Network.
Yes.
Okay, so he came out and he was there, and
now there's a really good reason to watch Backstage, when before it was just kind of like, oh, I like Booker T and
so
and Renee Young. Yeah, so yeah, it was nothing major, just CM Punk.
Let me say this. I stopped watching wrestling in maybe like the early 2000s, and then I came back only in the last couple of years. I missed the entirety of CM Punk's whatever it was. All I knew of him was that he was the guy with the X's on his hands and the Pepsi tattoo. So, okay, he's back and everybody's losing their shit. Why?
Yeah,
You're gonna have to
because
remind me.
because the CM Punk was all that was good in wrestling.
Uh huh.
That's why you would hear the chants for CM Punk whenever something that the fans didn't like or weren't interested in happened, because anything that CM Punk did or does is better than 90% of what WWE is doing, and they're not totally wrong with that. But of course, the nostalgia factor is
So you're
is
pulling a
higher.
balancing act with that chip on your shoulder there, Jesse.
I am, but because it, I think time away has given everyone some more
Rose tinted glasses,
uh just
CM Punk tinted glasses,
yeah,
Pepsi
CM Punk.
tinted
No, no,
glasses.
no, no. The Pepsi logo is just a happy incident that he was a little pissed about because of how marketing goes.
Yeah,
He was a little
I've heard
pissed
the
about the
backstory.
Jimmy
Yeah.
Johns on
On Brock
on
Lesnar.
Brock Lesnar, because WWE wrestlers cannot promote anything that the company is not promoting. Like
He's
they,
got he's got the Pepsi logo tattooed to
but
him.
it's not a promotion. It's just like I like
He likes
Pepsi.
Pepsi. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
maybe Brock Lesnar likes Jimmy John's. I mean, we don't
He
know.
might like Jimmy Johns, but that doesn't stop the fact that he was paid to wear them on his shorts.
No, I don't think Brock Lesnar likes anything, and,
Anyway,
and
so
so
there's a small contingent of people who hold CM Punk as a whiny bitch, and there's
mhm,
a much larger contingent of people who hold him as the greatest thing that's ever happened to the WWE, and the whole reason why the WWE is a failure right now, and terrible, and no one should watch it, and they should sell their
entire fact that CM
WWE.
Punk is gone. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Well, I will say this: I thought that CM Punk and the WWE weren't really on speaking terms.
And that's what
Did
I
Fox
think. That was a
like
lot of the things. Yeah,
did Fox come over like swinging their nuts and their money, and they were
probably.
like, "Hey, come back and talk," because I mean, I appreciate integrity, I really do,
Hmm.
but generally in the entertainment business, if somebody comes waving enough money at you, yeah, you're gonna make Iron Man 4, you know.
So
So,
here's the deal.
hmm
Um, Punk just got totally burned out by creative.
hmm
He just wasn't excited about where he was going. He felt he was a bigger draw than they were putting him down as.
hmm
He didn't really want to go into the CM Punk versus Triple H program that was being scheduled for
hmm
WrestleMania. He just thought it didn't work. And more than that, though, he was burnt out from the like 320 days on the road a year schedule. And I think that's the same thing that happened with Jon Moxley, Dean Ambrose, is he got
I
burnt
was
out by the schedule as well.
I was fixing to bring up. Well, I saw a quote on Reddit, haha, the best source,
Hmm.
that John Moxley was also frustrated with the creative and blah blah blah.
Hmm.
But whereas John Moxley, Dean Ambrose, Jonathan B. Good had had a
Yes.
chance to like go to the AEW promotion.
Well, yes. So
It was
yes, CM Punk stayed away from wrestling entirely.
yeah.
He essentially said that he was retired and
hmm
that he wasn't going to wrestle anymore. And there's nothing that has happened has changed that. He focused on being an MMA fighter for a while, and it didn't work out quite as well as I'm sure he had hoped. Um,
It's
I
probably
think
pretty diplomatic of you, but
uh,
okay.
so his first fight he had no business being in. His second fight was probably enough that if he was like 22 instead of 38,
He's okay.
that it probably would have been like, okay, this guy has some stuff. Maybe if he works hard, he could make it onto a major card and work his way up. But
hmm
2 fights into a 3 fight contract, he wouldn't have been able to be good enough to push his way into any sort of Brock Lesnar level MMA type thing. So when that died out, he did some work as an analyst for MMA, and then he started doing the wrestling like cons convention circuit.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the events that he did was, I think it's like Starcast, I believe is what it's called, is the convention that happens around every AEW pay per view. So the last one that was in Chicago, not this last one, but I think the one before that in Chicago, there was of course the big buzz, since that's CM Punk's hometown, that he was going to join AEW and pop in there. But he only went to Starcast there, and he was not on the show.
Hmm.
So that may have been a little bit of a moment for the WWE, and they, plus the big Fox money, may have come sweeping back. And you know what? This is probably the best fit for CM Punk because he's not going to be out on the road. I don't see him working as a full-time wrestler ever again for the WWE. Maybe he becomes a like the cameo wrestler that like Triple H is or something like that. But I don't even know if he'll do that. Like, he may be happy just being a commentator.
Do you think
Analyst.
this is going to be enough to satisfy enough to satisfy the CM Punk fans?
Nope.
Do you think the CM Punk chants will disappear?
Nope.
Okay.
In fact, if he shows his face on any sort of real, like live audience WWE show,
Okay, that anybody who's on stage at that moment will be buried on stage.
Right.
Out, yeah.
Yeah,
So.
and then they'll chant for the whole rest of the segment and maybe the whole rest of the show. And they won't be happy until he comes back to wrestle.
Oh well, kids, you heard it here first. Probably ain't gonna happen. Get over it. I'm sure they will.
Now, I was like driving in the car earlier, like before this happened, like within a week of Punk coming in, and I was just thinking about, I don't think Punk's ever going to wrestle with the WWE again. There was some quotes like "never say never" or "never is a long time" along those sort of lines from both sides.
And remember my quote that if they wave enough money at you, you'll do it. So.
I figured that eventually he would accept an invitation to the WWE Hall of Fame and accept that honor graciously. I didn't think it was irreparably that way. I don't think that they left on such bad terms when he did leave, especially seeing as his wife continued to work for the WWE after that. She took time off and then worked and then wrestled at WrestleMania, got one last WrestleMania moment, and then informed them that she wasn't going to finish out the rest of her contract. I think.
What's her name? Like Mrs. Punk?
AJ Lee was her stage name.
Ah, okay, very good.
And she and Paige basically held up the women's division for an entire year. Propped it up.
Okay.
Before she left.
So
and then the WWE, the women's revolution happened.
Let me ask you a question. And I typically don't. We don't dive into our own personal thoughts too often on the show. Well, yeah, we do. But is the reason you, what is your actual feeling about CM Punk? Are you like, do you have kind of I'm not going to say a knee jerk, but like a Pavlovian reaction when you see him because of all of the assholes that will start chanting CM Punk?
I don't have anything like that. That's my reaction to the assholes, not to CM Punk himself. I'm actually with you. I was a bit of a lapsed fan during the era of CM Punk, so I didn't get to see him at the height of his power. I've watched like the CM Punk documentary that they put out shortly before he left, which was nice. It was good to get like that kind of vision of him, and he's a guy who doesn't generally care what you think of him. He does want to be the best that he can be. So it ended up being a little abrasive. He's a very similar. He seems like a very similar personality to like a Jon Moxley, that kind of person who just wants to be the character that they are. They don't want people writing for them. They don't want to get into crappy, soap opera stories. They just want to be the best and be the top of the business. The
Hmm.
and then so I don't I think that's cool. I'm all for it. The unfortunate thing is, and WWE is guilty of this, that if you that you can't always have the same guy on top though. It just gets stale. It just gets boring, and it's better to cycle through some people on top just to keep
Yeah.
things going.
I mean, to be honest, and this is maybe outside of the realm of discussion, but if you look at the prime example I have of this is Jericho, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's been different in pretty much every era of wrestling because he understands he has to reinvent himself. So
And
he's not.
he also
I mean,
understands that there's always a place for him on the roster. It may
yeah.
not be at the top as the world champion. It may be as the U.S. champion and the best friend to the Universal champion. It
Mhm.
might be as a mid card, feud. It might be putting over Bray Wyatt when you come back for like 3 months. It might be that, and that's the cool thing about Jericho is he understands that and how to put that over. I think Punk was okay going because he did get a lot of shit though too. He was right at the
Yeah.
edge of that, right at the edge of an era where it was still all big meaty dudes that Vince McMahon wanted to put over, and
Oh
not
God, yeah.
quite yet, indie darlings, which is where we are now, where we have AJ Styles, where we have Daniel Bryan. In fact, Punk was a proponent for guys like Daniel Bryan. He came out and he brought um, one after they all won titles. He came out and he brought Daniel Bryan out and Zack Ryder out and cut a whole promo. It's one of his more famous promos where he put both of them over as guys who probably shouldn't have ever gotten over in the company because
Hmm.
of how it was run and who these people were, like Daniel Bryan being 5 foot nothing or whatever he is, being a little guy, and Zack Ryder being a fringe enhancement talent who got himself over with a
Which,
YouTube series.
by the way, everybody out there listening, Zack Ryder and Daniel Bryan, compared to the normal human being, are not small people. So,
No, I mean Daniel
yeah.
Bryan isn't the tallest of humans, but he is spry and limber and strong looking enough where you'd pick him over most humans if you wanted somebody to help you with a fight.
That's true. Oh goodness. Okay, I see your point. But I just wanted to ask that because you and I might be kind of outside of a particular dimension of people who are markified
Hmm.
for CM Punk.
This would
So,
this would have been a great week to have the connection come back and weigh in on it because he was a huge CM Punk mark, and he would be able to tell us with all the overflowing markiness on why we should all join the cult of personality that is CM
but
Punk.
that was his intro music, right?
Yes, that was his intro music. I was
Well, maybe that's why they
losing
got
to
rid of him. It
the
was too expensive.
yes.
Cult of Personnel. That's why
He
Ronda
actually
Rousey
came
isn't on
out
TV
to
anymore.
that
So,
music at WWE backstage.
yeah. Which, by the way, I don't like that song. The guitar is like ding and
That's the
it's
hook. That's what they want for successful WWE songs is that hook.
well, no, I
Like they're
mean,
breaking
as
glass. It
a
works
pro
perfect.
wrestling
Yeah.
entrance, whenever you hear bang,
Yes.
then
But
you
as
know
a
who's running
Rock
out. But
Band 4 song on Expert, it murdered your face, right?
yes, how are you able to tell why I don't like songs? It's like this song is bullshit
Cuz
and
I
Rock Band. I hate
know
it.
you. Otherwise, that song rocks, so you should like it.
Maybe get me drunk at a nightclub and I'll like it. But for now, like whatever.
Of course, when I think of a nightclub, I'm thinking of like a EDM remix of that song
Dook, dook,
playing.
dook, dook. Well, that might be cool. Anyway,
Hmm.
that was my marking out, and I say that with a question mark because
Right.
I understand everybody was marking out for
Yes.
Mr. Punk, but
And you
uh,
you got a little bit caught up in the business. It was everywhere. It's hard to not get caught up in that.
oh god, yeah, no, I saw it everywhere. I saw it Twitter, Reddit, Instagram, Facebook, Yahoo email. It was all over the
Yeah,
place.
yeah.
So okay,
Even your AIM Instant Messenger popped up.
AIM. It's kind of like redundant. It's like saying ATM
Yes, it's
machine.
the Department of Redundancy Department.
Oh, God, everybody mentions that whenever I say redundant. Anyway,
Well, that's because
so
it's the easiest way to give the point. It's not
the
like
redundancy
pointing to the
department of
Alanis
redundancy
Morissette
department
when trying
department
to
of
decide
redundancy.
what's ironic. That's a simple and easy way to show redundancy.
I had a student ask me what ironic meant once, and I was like, "Fuck, I don't know.
Well,
I
what's
should know
not
this because I'm a teacher." Oh.
an English teacher? I got you. Well, I'll tell you what's not either ironic or redundant, and that was the
Hmm.
Red Universal title on the Blue Show. So Firefly Funhouse and Bray Wyatt fixed that. Bray Wyatt blew the belt.
I get it. He
Yes.
turned it blue, right?
Yes, he did. He did a magic trick. He put on a top hat and a cape, and he had a little wand, and he did like a yowie wowie abracadabra, and poof, and it became blue.
He became blue, or the belt became blue.
He didn't blue himself.
Okay, so he's
Uh,
not Blue Wyatt right now,
no,
right?
no, no, no. He is not joining the Blue Man Group, nor
Okay.
is the Fiend or
I was gonna
or
say,
Rambling
he's not
Rabbit.
gonna be the Bleed. He's not gonna come out later and wrestle under all blue lights, is he?
No, no, not under all blue lights. He's not changing his entrance music to something from Eiffel 55. No, he's still the Fiend.
He's not gonna roll down to the stage like that one lady in Willy Wonka who couldn't keep her hands off the blue bear.
Violet Beauregard. No, not at all.
I was about to say Violet. Very.
Violet, you're turning violet.
Was
That's
turning. Wait, was she turning?
yeah. She was turning more of a purple than a blue,
Yeah, no, that was
but it
more
was a
like a
blueberry
blue
that she
color.
ate. So it was like it was a joke to play off her name.
Yeah, but her name wasn't Bruce Beauregard.
No,
So
or
hey,
blue
you know what?
Beauregard. Blues Beauregard sounds like a
God.
jazz musician or something.
Well, actually, if you call somebody Bruiser Beauregard, that's actually a pretty good wrestling name.
Yes, yes, and it would probably work as a good throwback.
Yeah, it's got
Daniel
a
Bryan
little
won't be calling
to it.
himself Bruiser Beauregard anytime soon, but he will call himself the #1 contender for the Universal title.
Against the Bleed. I mean the Fiend.
Yes, against Bray Wyatt in his red sweater.
Okay, great. So time to murder Daniel Bryan.
That's the well, it's a good first first feud for the Fiend because Daniel Bryan isn't gonna lose anything by losing this feud, and there's some background that they can pull off of pretty quickly and easily. So it'll be good. Like I said last week, though, it'll be fun watching the Fiend take 17 running knees, and getting pulled out of 18 yes locks. But we'll see how that goes. It'll be Survivor Series, so we are getting a standalone championship match.
Okay.
For both top titles. And
Wonderful.
then we'll have the NXT SmackDown Raw matches the rest of the way.
I think if I were a Bray Wyatt mark, which I am, I would be looking forward to Survivor Series as maybe kind of a reset of what happened at Hell in a Cell. It's like, let's do what you were supposed to do here. Come out, squish Bray Wyatt. Come out, squish Daniel Bryan, and if you don't squish Daniel Bryan, still beat him.
Oh, I mean, he's not going to squish Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan's going to have all sorts of hope spots. He's going to look like maybe there's a chance at some point where he's going to win.
Well, I mean, that's part of the Daniel Bryan character, right?
Yes, that's exactly
right.
part of the Daniel Bryan character. So they can't really not do that. But, well, we'll see. They have named the SmackDown team for Survivor Series. That'll be Roman Reigns, Mustafa Ali.
Mustafa Ali.
Yes, he has reclaimed his first name, and there was a social media post to prove it.
Ah, Glory Day.
Yes. Unfortunately, I think it may have came at the cost of Chad Gable becoming Shorty G, but...
What?
That's his new name and gimmick, and he wears like
basketball. Shorty G?
Yes, basketball shorts and the basketball jersey and a headband, and now he's Shorty G.
Oh my God! Is this Vince McMahon backstage still fucking with him?
Oh, probably.
He's like, you know what? Shorty sounds like a rap name.
He's not even fucking with him. He thinks it's a great idea, so he's doing it.
You know what? Stupid gimmicks, if they're embraced,
Hmm.
they can wind up getting over.
Oh,
So
I think Chad Gable has 100% embraced it. I mean, his original gimmick was him holding a towel and saying a catchphrase, "Ready, willing, and Gable," and being goofy that way.
I will
And
say this:
it
I
got
read a
him
comment.
over a little bit until like he and Jason Jordan became this awesome wrestling machine. And then that's what he's more well known for, the American Alpha version of him. So
We talked about where are they now, Jason Jordan.
I think he's still like I'm not sure he came back from the injury
Did he
correctly.
like
He's
super super hurt? Huh?
he's producing. He is healthy enough to be backstage without any sort of braces or anything, and
Okay.
producing matches. But
Goodness.
I don't. I think either something happened in his he in his rehab, he setback, or it didn't come back the right way, and I don't
Yeah,
know. It's
remember,
not
everybody,
great.
the human body's a squishy thing.
Hmm.
Sometimes it sometimes it bounces back. Sometimes it just doesn't.
Yeah, not everyone is John Cena, who cuts 3 months off of every
Well,
rehab timeline and comes back every time.
but I will say this about Shorty G.
Hmm.
Somebody said that this gimmick is better than catering table Gable.
Yeah, I mean, anything's better than that.
Yeah, to
Like,
be hanging out there with EC3.
EC3 would want to
So,
be Shorty 3
yeah.
at this point.
Oh,
Maybe they'll
as an
become a tag
aside,
team. We'll find out.
Sin
Hmm.
Cara asked for his release, evidently.
Right. Now, that's an interesting thing because he's the second Sin Cara. So it'll be interesting to see whether WWE does what it did last time and releases the wrestler for the former Hunico and keeps the Sin Cara and puts somebody else under the mask, or
Hmm.
whether they allow him to go and wrestle with the same mask elsewhere. That'll
Mm.
be an interesting thing to keep an eye on. That's just kind of a, you know, like keeping the books kind of thing, rather than like serious storyline. It's just kind of like one of those backstage backworks.
Well, I mean, and as a short history of this version of Sin Cara, right? Didn't he run out to make a spectacular entrance
So
and like,
he's the longer tenured Sin Cara out of the two at
okay,
this point.
he's not the one
Um,
that came out and fucked up like the Royal Rumble entrance or whatever, right?
no, this is still the botching Sin Cara.
Okay, yeah, no, I mean, that's almost like not quite as bad, but almost like the Shockmaster crashing through the wall. That's it's over before it started.
It would be
So
fun if they brought back the Sin Cara Negro storyline and once again passed the mask on because that's how they did it last time too. That would probably be very interesting. I would like to see it. And it's funny because they actually just brought him back and he's working and putting over a new female wrestler.
okay,
A new masked female wrestler, a luchadora.
he might not have risen to the heights of Rey Mysterio though. So I mean, I don't want to put words in his mouth,
No, no one,
But
no one's Rey Mysterio, and that's the WWE's problem. Is they've been
well, yeah.
looking for the next Rey Mysterio, and even Rey Mysterio is not going to solve the Rey Mysterio issue.
No, and as far as luchadors and the WWE, I
Mhm.
think to be honest, the WCW played that better back in the days of Nitro.
Oh yeah,
'Cause
and
I,
they
I
just
always
had
looked
all they
forward
had.
to those
Well,
guys. So
they
yeah,
had a luchador division essentially.
oh yeah, and it was fantastic.
Hmm.
My man was what's his face? I loved him so much that I forgot his name. Uh, the skeleton guy. Fuck.
Oh, La Parca,
La Parka. Yeah,
I
see, we're
believe that
we're
was it.
displaying our ignorance here. Yeah, no, I was a big La Parka fan back in the day. So, all right, so big that I forgot his name. Anyway,
Yeah, good job, Mark.
I told you I have a goldfish memory.
Hmm. Oh, hi, Mark. Speaking of marking out, a lot of people did exactly that when the sudden but inevitable betrayal of a certain best friend of Cody Rhodes happened at Full Gear.
Ah, yes, this is when MJP kicked him in the balls or whatever, right?
MJF. Thank you for
MJF.
slamming
Okay.
TJP and MJF together.
I'm glad you immediately recognized what I had done.
Yes, I know you well enough to understand all your failures, too.
My brain was searching for one of those wrestlers with only 3-letter names.
3-letter name, go, go, go.
At least it wasn't Triple H.
MJH.
Yeah, no. So I would like to point out before we discuss this that this was Cody wrestling Jericho for the AEW title, and the stipulation was that if he lost, he would never challenge for the title again.
Right, which I thought was a little worse than 50-50 that it would happen. Obviously, the fact that the Young Bucks lost in the first round of the tag team tournament for the titles, that gave me a little faith that they would actually do it this way. And I think Cody not only understands but has proven that you don't need to have a title to be a big draw, a big shot. So I think he's willing to bank on that.
Yeah, I think that's been, because I was thinking about this earlier when I was in the shower. There have been many iconic matches that weren't for any title. But they had a fantastic story. People invested, yada, yada, yada. You don't need a title to have a great match. And at the same time, I remember you telling me at the beginning of this, do you remember the first AEW pay-per-view, like, whatever it was? It was a Las Vegas theme.
Yeah, it was like was All Out.
All Out? No,
yes.
I think it was All In.
All In was the first pay-per-view they did, but it wasn't technically an AEW pay-per-view.
Okay. Well, the one where
he went up... NWA Championship?
No, the one where he went up to that throne that looked very much like Triple H's throne.
That was All Out.
Yeah.
All In was before AEW was announced, and the main event was Nick Aldis versus Cody Rhodes for the NWA Championship, which Cody Rhodes won.
Okay, so the first AEW pay-per-view, he went and smashed a Triple H throne with a sledgehammer, and we've talked about it on the show, right? I was like, does he have a problem with WWE? And you said, no, I think he has a problem with Triple H. That's what you said. And then on later shows, we were talking about it, and you said something along the lines of, no, Cody Rhodes is a lot more like Triple H than he wants to be or than he thinks he is, or something like that. So I think Cody Rhodes might be aware of that narrative, or might understand that to some degree, which might be why he didn't book himself to win the championship.
Right, and he has been aware of that narrative. It has come up. It has come up in interviews where, people are just like, oh, you're just gonna, or you're just gonna nepotism book all the elite and all the, all the top spots. And, he didn't necessarily say no to it, but I think he's been very aware of, like, the Roman Reigns effect, where the people who are pushed by the people running the company, and it's very obvious that that's the fact, don't get over. So I think he's done a good job keeping the title scene fresh. We'll see how it goes from here, because now we got to figure out who Chris Jericho gets to feud with, because they haven't really set up a good, like, second top face in AEW.
Well, they got some time before the next pay-per-view.
Right.
And I mean, there's still a little bit of, it's still a little bit shiny and new. So people haven't, like, settled into the trenches to grump about things quite yet with AEW. So
right.
We'll see.
Well, maybe it's one of these two who had the main event at Full Gear, Jon Moxley or Kenny Omega.
I heard about that main event. That was a hardcore match, right?
It was an unsanctioned lights out match.
What the fuck does that mean?
Well, unsanctioned is, like, code for there are literally no rules.
Okay.
And I guess here,
is this supposed to be like underground bare knuckle boxing or some shit? It's like the cops run in, they'll shut us down.
There's a wrestling style called deathmatch.
Oh, this is like that Combat Zone wrestling shit where they bash each other with, like, fluorescent light tubes and hit each other with weed whackers. And...
Yes, and then make them eat the broken glass of the fluorescent light tube. Yes, that is a death match.
That doesn't seem to have been what people wanted on wrestling television lately. And by people, I mean the people putting on the TV.
Apparently not, because people were not super excited about what they saw. Of course, Dave Meltzer gave it a 4.5.
Well, that's because Kenny Omega was involved.
Yes, probably. He does have a little bit of a hard-on.
No offense to Dave Meltzer. But...
I mean, it was for what it was a good
Mhm.
match.
I've read commentary that said that it was excellent stagecraft, that it wasn't actually as dangerous to the performers as your typical like death match that you might see
Right.
in Combat Zone Wrestling or
Yeah,
something like that.
there was a
So
segment with glass, but it was obviously stage glass.
that's
So
important.
like they weren't trying to slit each other's wrists or whatever
This
with
wasn't
it.
actual fluorescent light tubes which
Hmm.
break into sharp little fucking shards and spray the audience with glass and powder and
Yeah, and yeah,
all that other stuff.
toxic powder.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, this was there was glass shards of glass, which were theoretically the story was that those were shards of glass from the table that Kenny
Shards of
Omega
glass from the table.
got put through. You remember the
Oh yeah, no,
DDT
no,
through
I
the
remember.
table?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, yes.
Oh hell,
So
that could have been rock candy for all we
it
knew then.
was. That was what it was because he then just put it in a bag
Mm-hmm.
and smashed it all up, and then dragged or put Jon Moxley in a submission move, forcing John to drag himself through the through that stuff to get a rope break or some sort of break. I'm not sure if there was rope breaks in this match. I didn't watch. I didn't pay the
Okay.
$50 or whatever to watch this pay-per-view.
Yeah, because fuck that.
No, I
But
just watched a review of it. But you know yeah, you know, it's as close to a death match as you're going to get on regular television these days, and I think they kind of like the reviewer that I had watched, Brian Zane of Wrestling with Regret, said that basically the only thing that has been anywhere near close to this on major television was the other, you know, Jonathan Good match, the Dean Ambrose Asylum match against Jericho,
mhm.
where there was, you know, all sorts of weapons and then the thumbtack finish.
Well, you know, um, there's part of the worry about all of this is that it will inspire indie wrestlers or backyard wrestlers or kids watching at home to go and like shatter a beer bottle and then body slam their brother onto it. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I understand those fears, but um, yeah, at the risk of sounding like I don't know, my mother told me when I was young, right? Um, when I watched Daffy Duck get shot in the face with a shotgun, she grabbed me and she said, "You know, son, that's not real, right? They're doing special things there." I'm like, okay. And so when I was watching wrestling, my mother would say, "You know, son, they're professionals. If you try that, you'll hurt yourself." I'm like, "Yeah, okay." I understood that,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I know you want to keep impressionable youth away from things that will impress them, but at the same time, where does that responsibility fall? And that's where we're gonna wade into like congressional hearings and shit like that.
Well, you want to hear what Jim Cornette thought of the match?
I don't give a shit what Jim Cornette thought.
Most people don't. He is the champion of old-fashioned wrestling, which
I
is
mean, I
why
like
he's
old-fashioned
which is
wrestling.
why
You
he's with
know,
NWA and working as part of the creative team for NWA. And it is a great product because it is kind of aping the old studio format, and
yeah,
it's a
and
lot
don't
of
get me
fun.
wrong. I appreciate him for that to a
Hmm.
degree. I just wish you weren't an asshole about it.
Right.
That's
He gets very over the top about it, and he doesn't need to be. He doesn't need to say it was self-indulgent, phony, silly, stupid, embarrassing, big budget garbage fucking wrestling.
so Jim Cornette is cutting promos 24/7
Yes,
on
yes,
Twitter.
he is. He lives the gimmick. He is cutting promos 24/7 gimmick.
Okay, everybody, if you understand that about Jim Cornette, you can laugh at him and not take him seriously. I mean, the man's passionate about the old school, and he clearly carries that on into
Now he
Twitter.
did give some old school credit though, because the lights out match is actually an old school style. Apparently, the you actually turn the lights out, dim the lights, and then bring them back up, and that's how, you know, that's the old school way to do a lights out match, which
Oh
I
yeah,
guess
you
is
turn the lights off. Show's over. Everybody go home. Oh wait,
hmm well, I
this
mean,
is
is I guess how the hardcore style came up was this
yeah.
lights off, lights out
You know,
match.
I feel like I should say this because on the record I've said that hardcore matches typically bore me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't want to say that they can't be done well. They can.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but They bore me if it's at the expense of good storytelling, if it's at the expense of good wrestling, if
If
it's
it's
just kind of like torture porn,
if it is torture porn or garbage wrestling, which is just
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
what can I hit you with? Let me
yeah.
look around.
Or
And that's
if
the
it's
entirety of the 15-minute match, which is just like looking around to find things to hit people with.
or if it's clear that a wrestler's legitimate health has been put at risk, like famously when Mankind's hands were handcuffed behind him and The Rock wailed on him in the head with a chair over and over again.
Right.
Um,
So you should probably never watch a Joey Janela match then.
I don't even know who that is.
He
So.
was the guy who faced off against Sean Spears at Full Gear. Sean Spears, by the way, finally got a match win. It
Oh, cool.
it included a spiked spiked pile driver onto the concrete, assisted by Tully Blanchard.
Meaning he was like pushing down on the other wrestlers like bottom as they were going to
Yes.
the
Yep.
ground. Okay.
Tully Blanchard jumped off the ring stairs and grabbed the top of Joey Janela's feet to do the spiking.
Jesus Christ. I mean, pile drivers are risky. I don't have a thing against pile drivers in particular because I grew up in that era, but I don't necessarily miss them. I don't think you need them to make a good wrestling
And
show.
Joey
But,
Janela's whole gimmick is that he just fucks up his shit all the time. Like
fucks up his shit.
yes, his bumps are gross looking most of the time.
Oh god, is that because he can like rubber band sell, or does he take risks?
That's because he doesn't look like $1,000,000, and I think that's the way that he needed to kind of get over, is to
Oh,
just
because
be the most to do the most realist looking bumps and the
because
sickest looking bumps and just like
it
fuck his
doesn't
shit
look
up.
like smooth butter. It looks like janky. Ow, shit! Did that really hit?
Yes.
Kind of things. Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, that's basically his gimmick, is that he's a bad boy and he does what he wants, and he'll do whatever the fuck he needs to, including murdering himself in order to come out on top.
Mr. Janela, you don't have to kill yourself for us.
Well, I mean, he got him signed to AEW, so
Oh well, yeah, sure it did. Okay. Well, at any rate, rewind. So, yep, we had that hardcore match. I haven't seen it. I can't really comment on it. I can only give my sort of like observations of people's reactions to it and stuff like that. So,
and I got the Cliff Notes version for it, and I have never seen a death match, but listening to people who have seen a death match, they were like, that was nothing. That was like baby version of a death match.
okay, so calm down, the Dave Meltzers of the world.
No, Dave Meltzer was good. Calm down the internet.
Oh, calm down the internet.
Internet wrestling.
We could say that about anything ever, generally.
Yes.
Calm down the internet.
Calm down the internet.
I gotta. Anything else go down on AEW Full Gear?
No title changes. I don't think.
Yeah, we talked about the two biggest matches. It was Cody Rhodes got betrayed by Mr. Three-letter name, and
Yes. And then MJF ate an entire like soda in the face on his way back up to the ramp.
somebody was it like a can or a cup?
It was a cup. It was the contents of a cup, but it was like a full cup, and it was fully
I imagine
in his
him
face.
getting like hit in the face by like a can of Coke, and that
that's why they don't
fun.
give out cans at sporting events for that that entire reason.
That shit will come sailing into the ring.
Mm-hmm. And they don't do it at football or baseball or anything else, just because they don't want it being thrown on the
yeah.
The field.
It's like why they have those chicken wires strung up in front of the Blues Brothers, right?
Yeah.
All those beer bottles came sailing in, and they were like, "Oh shit!"
Exactly, just like that.
Rolling, rolling, rolling. They just played Raw.
The Adam Page versus Pac match was also well received. So it's possible
sure
somebody could come out of that as the #1 contender for the title as well.
I
know
that they've
Pac has
done...
talked about. I mean, Adam Page lost that championship match, but maybe it's time to circle back to him. And Pac has talked about the fact that he had never lost in AEW. This was actually his first loss. He lost to Hangman Page, but he's a big champion. He's been a champion elsewhere, and he should have a shot at the title. So we'll see.
I saw a statistic online that said, true or not, that Jon Moxley and Jericho were the only two undefeated people in AEW at this point.
Probably correct. I mean, that's the whole AEW wants to be top level on their statistics, and that wins and losses matter. So if wins and losses do matter, and that's the whole point, they're going to want to have Dean Ambrose, Jon Moxley versus um versus Jericho, which is a
You know,
match
I,
we
I
have
I
seen.
will say this: if AEW lasts, and it's my impression, just briefly here, that it will. They seem to have some performers that can go for like a couple of years.
Yeah, and they got some money
Then
behind them. Yep.
yeah, that's not going to matter after like the first year. It can't. It's like comic book continuity. It's not going to work. So, um, but I will mention that when I was on the wrestling subreddit on Wednesday, there seemed to be a lot more commentary about AEW Dynamite than NXT.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that was the whole observation.
Yeah, that's a good observation. I didn't really have much more to say.
And to add to those observations, on AEW Dynamite, Luchasaurus came out and stomped the motherfucker. That was great. I'm a big Luchasaurus mark, even though I've never actually seen him wrestle in a single match. I just heard about his name, saw him, and I was like, oh yes, I love this wrestler. And then at some point they were brawling backstage, and somebody was thrown through a restroom door, and Orange Cassidy was just like hanging out in the restroom, and
Yep.
everybody thought that was great.
Yeah,
And
everybody thought that was great except everybody who hates Orange Cassidy.
those are the people who don't fucking get it.
Yep.
Or those are the Jim Cornettes of the world who take it all too seriously, like, oh, Orange Cassidy, what is he fucking doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the whole point. What is he fucking doing?
I'm gonna look up his Jim Cornette on Orange Cassidy, because that's one of those weird ones that he might actually like the gimmick, because it's like it's funny. It's kind of old school in how it's done. It's stupid, but it's not like how much different is it from Doink the Clown?
And I will say this about Orange Cassidy: like most wrestlers, I have some inkling of the way they are in real life.
Mm-hmm.
No idea about Orange Cassidy, and I don't want to know. It's just I just imagine him as the guy doing like shoulder drops with his hands in his pockets from the top rope. I don't want to know the real Orange Cassidy.
Yeah. So I'm trying to find something that's quick and easy on it, but I'm gonna have to listen to some asshole's podcast or something to hear about what Jim Cornette thinks about Orange Cassidy. And
You can listen to our podcast.
yeah, I mean, I'm sure. Apparently, I'm looking at a thumbnail for official Jim Cornette YouTube channel, and it's got Orange Cassidy in a straitjacket, so, and like looking like the Jim Cornette's trying to have him committed. So, apparently he thinks the gimmick is insane. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
So tune in next week to find out what we think about what Jim Cornette thinks.
Yeah, next week will be Survivor Series weekend. So,
oh, you're right. Okay.
Yeah, we're coming up tight on that. They've announced basically, I think all the matches that are going to be on the card are already announced.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have 3 brand supremacy matches is how they're being built. Brand supremacy triple threats.
All right, if we're having 3 brand supremacy matches, then one's going to win one. So
1 each. That makes sense.
Yeah,
I mean, the NXTs looked a little soft after their opening salvo where they won the weekend. They've kind of looked a little soft in the following weeks.
A little soft.
Yeah, they like SAWFT soft.
Yes.
No, they've looked better than soft, I guess, in that case.
Okay, they look
They
say...
haven't looked. They definitely haven't looked strong. Wow, too many acronyms. The MJPs have come and beaten the crap out of them.
So you could blame this all on me.
Yes, that's what I'm gonna do. Of course, I'm gonna blame it on you. No, Raw and SmackDown
So the AOP came and DDT
AOP,
the ACDC.
AOP is still MIA.
Oh my God, you got it!
I win. We're done.
We're
done with this
win.
bit. Going on.
Shut up, Matt.
But the tag teams are going to be facing each other. Women are going to be facing each other, and the secondary titles are going to be facing each other. So we are getting the AJ Styles Shinsuke Nakamura Roderick Strong match, and everyone was like responding with the "shut up and take my money" gif. So
Well, no, that does sound pretty good, actually.
it does.
I'm looking forward to Roderick Strong having a strong showing.
Well, the funny part was Shinsuke Nakamura then tweeted shortly thereafter, "Strong Styles."
Ooh.
Mm. If
Ooh.
he wins, he becomes the king of Strong Styles. So
Yeah,
that was rife for all sorts of commentary.
I
Um,
imagine.
and yeah, in the women. So then we have the
Just
two. There's a women's Survivor Series elimination match and a men's Survivor Series elimination match, which we'll
What are the
see. The
what
I gave you the
brief?
teams for the SmackDown. We did the Raw team last week.
Mm-hmm.
NXT still has not given out their team for the men's team,
Mm-hmm.
nor for the women's team. Raw hasn't given out their women's team, and the women's SmackDown team. They added Lacey Evans to the team this week that already had
Okay.
Sasha Banks and Carmella and Dana Brooke.
Gee, Dana Brooke.
I know.
I mean, the rest of them are okay too, but. All
But
right.
yeah, so those I don't know, like a team like Seth Rollins, Drew McIntyre, Kevin Owens, Randy Orton, and Ricochet is a hell of a team.
Yeah.
Like that, I don't know if there's many more teams that you could say are better than that. But WWE went for it, and they tried to name the 20 best Survivor Series teams. And this does include the 4-man Survivor Series teams, which was the old setup.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which so what if you had to pick a Survivor Series team? Who would you pick that would be the best team of all time?
You mean out of the list from back in the day,
Well,
or
let's not even like if you've looked at the list, then yeah, tell me which one you think. If you haven't looked at the list, just give me like four top. Give me like a Mount Rushmore.
about Rushmore?
Yeah, give me a Mount Rushmore for Survivor
Okay.
Series. Like who would you? Maybe not even a
Um.
Mount Rushmore because you want Survivor Series wrestlers.
Okay. So, all right. Are you ready?
Yes.
For the men, I would choose Andre the Giant, Hulk Hogan, The Rock, and Stone Cold.
Okay. So the number one team on the WWE list does include The Rock.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
So that puts you. I'll give you the year too, so that you can try to
Okay.
guess a little bit better. It's
Okay.
2001,
Shit.
and this
2001.
is.
That's
And
what I
here's
was.
the other
A lot of
hint.
stuff happened that year.
Here's the other
Okay.
hint. Team WWE.
WWE.
Right.
Okay.
So that gives you the
So
fact that it is the Invasion era
W.
storyline.
Oh yeah. So WWE. 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 What would Elmer do? What would Elmer do? Kane.
Kane.
Kane. The Big
Kane is on the
Show.
team. Yep.
Kane the Big Show.
Kane and the Big Show are on the
Because
team.
he's
Please
big.
don't tell me
Okay.
you're
Hey.
just looking at the picture
No, I'm not
and
just looking at the
pretending like you're
picture. I'm
coming up with the
guessing.
names. Okay.
No, no. I'm divining this from the clues you gave me. This is like
Yes.
Sherlock Holmes. So, if The Rock is there and Kane is there
Mhm.
and the other guy I said was
Big
there, the Big
Show.
Show.
Yes.
Okay. So let's see. Kane has long hair.
Mhm.
The Rock doesn't, but the Big Show does. So the
Uh
other guy have long hair. It's probably Jericho.
yes, Chris Jericho.
Hey, I did it.
Big Show didn't have long hair back then, by the way.
God damn it! I was looking at the picture. You got me.
Uh-huh. So yeah. I knew you were
The greatest. Is it just because it's two big motherfuckers and two movie motherfuckers?
Well, I mean, those that's like if you put a Mount Rushmore up of some of the greatest wrestlers of all time,
Mm-hmm.
there's a pretty decent argument that would be that could be a good Mount Rushmore.
Oh yeah,
We're
no,
talking
I'm
about
not.
two of the longest tenured big men and most accomplished wrestlers of all time in Kane and the Big Show, the goddamn Rock, who
Mm-hmm.
is the most well known wrestler of ever,
Mm-hmm.
and Chris Jericho, who has won everywhere, including currently the AEW.
Yeah, the only person I would compare to Chris Jericho is Ric Flair, and the only difference between the two is that while Ric Flair was everywhere, Ric Flair didn't really ever change his gimmick.
No. Well, I'll tell you what, the team who came in second
Uh-huh.
would not have been second place if it was as it was originally put together.
So, no,
So that don't hit the back button. Don't do it.
no, no, I looked at it.
Okay.
Bullshit. Don't care about those guys.
Well, so
The
it was.
Steiner brothers?
Yeah, so the gimmick was the All Americans versus the Foreign Menaces. I don't remember what the name of their team
The
was.
Foreign Menaces.
It might as well have been the Foreign Menaces because it was like Ludwig Borga and like whoever was foreign at the time. I can't remember. But
Mhm.
it was the All Americans because it was All American wrestlers, the Steiner brothers, and Lex Luger, who had become the Lex Express, super American guy, and then not the Undertaker, who my child brain at the time was like, I don't think he's an All American. Like, he's just the Undertaker. You know who was supposed to be there instead? Tatanka.
So where'd he go?
I think he got injured. Or he had a substance abuse problem or something. I can't remember. So he had to be pulled out for the Undertaker. There was the poster was like Tatanka doing his dance, and there was an arrest of the All Americans above a turkey that was wearing a sumo outfit like Yokozuna. And it's
you know,
yeah.
you know what? I've scrolled through this. I'm just gonna go with team number 5, which is Demolition, Hulk Hogan, and Jake Snake Roberts.
Well, it's hard to argue with Hulk Hogan wearing the the WWF World Championship at the time and Jake Roberts on any team. Though the one right behind it would give it a run for its money though.
Oh yeah, no, the Ultimate Warrior, Texas Tornado, and the Legion of Doom.
Yeah, I mean
That
would be a hell of a fantasy match actually.
Oh yeah, no.
I mean that's perfect balance basically between those two teams.
It's weird because like as far as like the Mount Rushmore of God, look at number 15, the Visionaries.
Yes,
Rick
that was
Flair, Lord Power.
very 80s.
This was in 1990, but they hadn't realized it was the 90s yet.
No, yeah, the 1990 and 1991 are still like part of the 80s. Because like grunge came out in 1992, and that's when everything changed.
Yeah, no, that's when everything was stupid.
Everything stopped being like angles and big shoulders and started becoming flannel and whining.
So go check out that list on the WWE.com if you want to look at the Days of the Future Past.
Yeah, there's some great, and there really is a Days of the Future Past team. That's number 13, the WWE Team Legends.
Oh no, I saw that team, and that seemed like a good moment for that team because they weren't. I mean, they were old, but maybe they weren't so old they were disgraceful yet.
They weren't ancient. They weren't like. Oh, I still thought that Ric Flair was going to break a hip.
Well, yeah, and I mean, like Dusty Rhodes probably wasn't able to do a lot, but
they were still, within the ability to do stuff. And this was before DDP Yoga too, so real big props to those guys.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, so we've said our piece. Typically, at the end of the show, we finish it up with our hot take. I almost said the 1, 2, 3. So the hot take, if you're listening for the first time, this is when one of us will tag in and we'll give a hot take on something wrestling related. It doesn't have to be completely, totally involved with wrestling. It can just be tangentially related, but it does have to come back to wrestling in some way. It can be about a peanut commercial we saw that had John Cena in it. It can be about whatever. It can be about a cookie we saw that looked like Hulk Hogan. So typically the way this happens is one of us will interrupt the other, and they will come in, and they will tag, and they will say...
Hot take, baby! So, yeah, I'm taking it over right now. I am happy to see the return of a mostly unfiltered Steve Austin talk segment on the WWE Network. The Stone Cold podcast used to have special WWE Network episodes, and they were very good. They were very good at kind of like peeling a layer back and finding out a lot more about not just the characters that are playing, but also the people who are playing them. And it was really cool to see Stone Cold interview a bunch of people that he may not have had the best relationship with, or maybe had a great relationship with, and can really dig at him and needle him. This one is especially special. This is now the new version of this that's playing on the WWE Network immediately after Survivor Series, Sunday, November 24th, is the Broken Skull Sessions. And the first guest is Mark Calloway, aka The Undertaker. And he's not in Undertaker garb. He's not doing the Undertaker voice. He's just shooting the shit with Stone Cold. So if you've never seen the Undertaker like outside of the character, this will be a surprise for you, and hopefully it'll be very educational.
Boy, that's the thing. Hot tag, hot take. So for my hot take, I'm gonna go once again to the land of Instagram. If you don't follow Zack Ryder on Instagram, it's a good follow, especially if you like wrestling, toys, Ghostbusters, and working out. I like most of those things. So Zack Ryder mentioned in one of his Instagram posts this last week that he was contacted by the people who made the toys that made us. Was it the toys that made us? I think so. The Toys That Made Us documentary on Netflix, which, by the way, if you haven't seen it, it's a lot of fun. I recommend it completely. Unfortunately, it seems like from Zack Ryder's post that he was contacted by that show. They interviewed him, and according to Zack Ryder, they quote-unquote handled it very unprofessionally. But, and this is the unquote part, Zack Ryder still thought it was a great show. So, go check him out on Instagram. Go watch The Toys That Made Us. You could find out the twisted origins of Barbie and He-Man. Lego doesn't really have twisted origins. They're all very square and sort of like geometric. Bada bing, bada boom.
Yes. They're not the life of the party, very square. Clearly not anyone you'd want to meet in a dark alley too, because if you stepped on them, holy crap.
Okay. So we've had the hot take, and now it's time for the what?
The end. This is where we finish.
Yes, it's time for the finishing move. The finishing move is typically a finishing move I come up with on the spot based upon what we've talked about during the show. So the name of this finishing move is called What Does Jim Cornette Think? And this is a tricky finishing move because to do it, you need Jim Cornette as your manager, or he needs to be in the crowd. So you can like bounce him off the ropes and do a double clothesline as a tag team, as they typically are, and then look back at Jim Cornette, and if you're shaking your head, you're like, oh, okay. And so then you pick him up and you do a double power bomb, and you look at Jim Cornette, and he's like, no, and you're like, oh, okay. Then you pick him up and you do some kind of whirligig like suplex twister DDT, and then you look at Jim Cornette, and he gives you a thumbs up, and you're like, yeah. And then
I don't know. That's kind of flippy shit. It might be too flippy shit for him.
Oh, he might not like it. Okay, so then you pick him up, and then you spin him off the ropes, and you do a big boot.
Yes, all right, big boot. We'll call it a big boot, and we'll call it a
tandem big boot.
A big tandem big boot. Big boots.
The big boots, and you look at Jim Cornette, and Jim Cornette is like, yeah. So after that, he's down on the ground. You pin him, and it's 1, 2, 3.
All right, good. Yes, and we get Jim Cornette in our corner here, celebrating with us, hitting people with a tennis racket. And while he runs interference, we'll escape to the back with our titles or our pride, whichever one we got from getting to 1, 2, 3, and we will sit back, enjoy ourselves, do something old school, like not do an episode of Ride Along for the WWE Network. We'll do something somewhat old school, because guess what? We're going to be listening to a podcast, and you know whose podcast it's going to be? Not the Jim Cornette podcast, but the Mark and Smark Connection podcast, which you can find at markandsmark.podbean.com, Spotify, iTunes, the Google Play Music Store, YouTube. You can find it on facebook.com/markandsmark, on social at Mark and Smark. That's Twitter, Instagram, wherever. And also at the Daily Smark website. So, for myself, Jesse Disbro, and Matt Cooper, and also for Jim Cornette, thank you for listening. We'll catch you next time.